Hi G, how's it going? We're gonna pretend we just sat down to have this conversation. How's it going today,
I
bud?
mean, it's the best way to do it, right? So,
That's exactly it. The magic of the movies and pretending. There's no
indeed.
troubleshooting ever required. We're here. We're playing
Oh,
some Vermintide 2. Gonna dive into it and start talking to you about what it's like being a voice actor in On the Line.
yeah. Okay, sounds good.
And you play Dezz.
Indeed, I got the role of Dez, and not gonna lie, having a lot of fun with it.
And this is your first time as a voice actor, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's correct. I've always wanted to try it for a long time. Just the idea of being a voice actor has always been a interesting thing for me to do. So when given the opportunity, I was like, all right, let's do this.
No, that's kind of the best way to start anything. Is just kind of interested. Let's dive into it.
Mhm.
Now, all these interviews, we've been playing a game while we're playing them. We're focusing on letting you pick the game too. I haven't had any choice in any of these interviews. Why do you think you picked Vermintide 2?
I've always actually enjoyed these types of games because they're not just Vermintide itself, but like other games like Payday 2 and other similar types of games. It's a lot of the cooperative concept to them, where you're actually just going against crazier and crazier odds as things get down the line. Um, Vermintide 2 allows a little bit of that with a little bit of a twist because it's the whole Warhammer aspect of it, and that whole world is always chaos and madness.
It really is crazy setting. Now this is it's an interesting thing when you recommended the game because it actually fits in the view I have of you, and this is going to be a positive thing. Don't worry. But
All right.
we first met in undisclosed technology company. We've
Yeah.
continued to play D&D together, and now we do this as well. And of all the times I've heard about things that you enjoy and seen the stuff you spend time in, you're really motivated by being a team player. Now,
That is something that is always stuck with me. Like everywhere I go, everything I do, I don't know. It's the whole team aspect is something that you can enjoy things a lot more that way. Be it when you're working or having fun. Uh, if anything, the pandemic really showed me how much I enjoy team aspects of things.
mhm.
Because before the pandemic, I would like go out and I would, enjoy the company of others via that, and I wouldn't worry too much about like playing all the games I played. Wouldn't be worried too much about them being like co-op or any shared experiences. I was able to play like JRPGs very easily without any difficulty.
Sure.
Since pandemic, I've been very much sticking to experiences that I can share with others
Sure.
because I can't do that same level of sharing in person anymore. So
So you kind of had the opposite thing happen to you. Like when the pandemic happened and I got to spend a lot of time by myself, I was like, "Oh, I could do this forever." And you were like, "Oh no, I did need that. That was important to me."
yeah, it was one of those things where I never really thought of myself as like super social individual. I was just like, yeah, I enjoy people's company, but I enjoy my time away from everyone as well. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, oh, um, you see, I actually enjoy having people around all the time. And now that I don't have that, it's very much something I miss extremely.
That makes absolute sense. Now, on the line itself, it's based heavily on a lot of different MMOs, so tons of different genres and experiences in there. What is your experience as a player with MMOs?
With MMOs, I actually have a fair bit of background with them. I started playing MMOs when I was a fair bit younger. I didn't start with like EverQuest or anything like that,
Okay.
but I actually started with Ragnarok Online,
Nice.
and that was a game that I just had an absolute blast with. Starting with that, I had a lot of different adventures with friends, and there was a lot of learning done about like different strategies and techniques, and funnily enough, ways to exploit the game experience as well.
Sure.
And as time went on, it very much established that whole like teamwork aspect and the whole like cooperative journey as you go through these types of games was a big thing for me.
Sure.
So I little by little made my way into other MMOs as well, such as WoW. Recently, I've been playing Final Fantasy Online.
Sure.
Having a blast with that,
And
and it's just.
Oh, I'm just curious, well, about your WoW experience, because everyone has a different one. How was WoW for you when you played? When did you quit?
Honestly, WoW was a lot of fun for me.
Yep.
While I played it, but that was mostly due to the fact of the friends that I had to play the game with at the time.
Sure.
After all that was taken care of, and it was just the game that was left in the end. There was a few times that it was fun. I'm also completely lost right now, so
yeah, that's okay.
It was fun for a bit here and there when it was just the game itself, but I very much realized that the game itself doesn't really matter too much. It's more so the friends you play with and the experiences you have together.
Sure.
And a group of my friends had stopped playing for a while, and I was like, still playing for a bit, and I was like, maybe I can keep going, and like, oh, there's all these things to do in the game, but I really couldn't care for any of those things. I was just like, what's the point if like I'm not playing this game with my friends?
Sure. And then you've moved into Final Fantasy, and is that what's keeping you in the game? The fact that you have people who also play it, or are you mechanically motivated to play that game as well?
With Final Fantasy 14, actually, they've added a couple of extra things to it that made me more interested in the game itself.
Sure.
With WoW, the story of the game was there, but it was very like bare bones.
Sure.
In that aspect, whereas with Final Fantasy, like you are critical to the story, and
yeah,
that has actually kept me going
game
as well. Yeah.
I feel the same way about Final Fantasy. You can like playing with, you know, folks. Like I was doing some mount grinding with a bunch of folks you probably know the other night. And that was amazing fun. But if none of those people are playing and it's just you and the game and the story, you're still having a good time.
Yeah, there's still so much to do, and it's presented in a way that is you can do whatever you want. Not you have to do these things. And I feel like that was one of the problems with WoW is it ended up being a case of like you have to do these things, otherwise you're falling behind.
That is the case, yeah.
I never want my game experience to be forced on me. I'd rather have it as an enjoyable experience. I want my game to turn into a job.
No, that's the thing. And like, it's not to say that you couldn't turn Final Fantasy into a job. It's easy to drop 14 hours into a session, but you don't have to feel like you're having fun or making progress.
Exactly.
Now,
and that's one of those big differences.
Totally. I'm curious if there is any difference between the character you played in WoW and the character you play in Final Fantasy. Are either of them closer to Dezz, who you're playing now and on the line?
I would definitely say my Final Fantasy character is a lot closer to Dezz.
Sure.
And even me, myself, as well. In WoW, I very much played a damage dealer. I played a warlock.
Okay, cool.
And that it was always just about like finding weird new tricks, essentially, and running around with those shenanigans, essentially.
Yeah.
But when I started up Final Fantasy, originally I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play a damage dealer again. I tried out Monk, and I was like, this will be interesting. But I never really got into it too much as a Monk. I gave it an honest shot, but it just didn't really click as much for me.
Sure.
Then I decided that, you know what, I want to switch over to be a paladin, because honestly, the paladin life being like the one on the front lines, protecting the others,
absolutely,
like that very much resounded with me a lot better, and I continued with that path, and I still play all the tanking classes, and I have a blast with it.
I agree, actually. Tanking in Final Fantasy feels really, really good. You get to be like the maestro of the dungeon, but
Yep.
there's a lot of good
I
stuff.
mean, like, you've always had control as a tank, even in other MMOs, but it's just the way the game is set up and how the interactions work and everything like that. Final Fantasy really, like, resounded solidly with me.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the way the paladin works, and the way you can take care of yourself in a worst case scenario. And
Yes.
sometimes you are the last one standing and have to be that shield for everyone. Like, that actually was a very solid thing for me, and I really enjoyed that.
It's a really wonderful thing when a game can like blend what you're doing and what you're feeling into one experience. You know, like you're casting all these abilities and doing everything you can, but both you, the game character, and you, the real life person, just wants everybody to live. And that's fun.
Very much so, and just defending the others is one of the big things for me. And along with that, like, after I got introduced to Dezz, I was like, interesting. He's not a paladin per se, but he's got a lot of those similar aspects. Like, he wants to make sure everybody else is safe. He looks out for his team. And also, he very much worries less about himself and worries more about the others around him.
Absolutely. Like, at the point of this interview, we are just coming up on the release of Chapter 5. But you've got to work with Dezz for a while now. You're a part of his journey. Do you feel like he started off close to you, or he's growing to be closer to you?
There was some aspects that I could relate to even in the start of the journey.
Sure.
But there were some things that were a little bit difficult for me to relate to. I did an honest effort, and I did what I could to represent those things. Specifically, like the aspects of him being a smoker. Even though he was a reluctant smoker, like, he was still a smoker. And for me, that was one of those things where I'm like, I've never smoked. I don't know what that's like, but I'll give it a shot. I'll see how things go.
Absolutely. No, and you know what?
And
he has a really cool journey, and I feel like that's been brought to the surface a lot by how you've presented him, and even the fact that, you know, some things you're a little bit uncomfortable with, but so is he, and that reads really well. So it was a fun thing to mix it up and make you do something you're not comfy with. But I'm glad that there are some traits you find are similar, some that are...
And with Chapter 5 happening, there are other things that happen that make me connect with him a little bit more. And I really enjoy the stuff that happens on his journey along the way.
Yeah, he gets to do a lot of fun things, because at the start, like, and you know, you carry this pretty well, but he cares about his friends, but it's magnified by the fact that we learn in Chapter 4 just like how much pain he's kind of seething through. You know, that kindness has a huge coffee filter of shit to kind of get through and soak through.
One of those things also that when I saw it, I was like, this makes a lot of sense for him as a character and him as a person. Just from what I've seen other people go through, there's a lot of people who, when they go through these like difficult times, they are also very kind to those around them. And that was one of those things that was very prevalent with Dezz.
Right.
I tried to carry that forward with me, like, throughout whenever he's doing his stuff. Now, mind you, with the more recent things, he's his attitude has changed a little bit, but his friends are still important to him, and that's not going to change, I suspect.
And you know, I imagine you feel the same as me, though. Is like no character should stay the same as they are in the beginning of a story. You know, that's a bad story. So it's good to see him go places.
Seeing an evolution of characters, and especially when like certain things around them change and those aspects of themselves get affected. If you don't see changes in them, then there's something else wrong with the story.
Absolutely, yeah. People haven't put to enough pressure, or nothing worth writing a story about actually happened in the first place. Maybe that's a rude opinion. If you were Dezz playing Final Fantasy, for example, which class do you think he would play?
Dezz would definitely be playing one of the different tank classes.
Yeah.
Just the way he is and how he puts himself out there on the front lines. You even see it early on in one of the fights against like the gargoyle thing that attacks us. Like, he doesn't hesitate. He jumps right in. He's trying to draw as much attention.
Absolutely.
And this is a situation where it's like, we don't know any way to defeat this thing, but whatever. Like, we need to get this taken care of, and his friends are in trouble, so he's gonna step up.
I fully agree.
So that's his earlier stuff. What's coming up next for him, I don't know, and I'm very excited to see what happens next with him as well. Because along with our listeners and readers, you don't know the full story as the cast.
No.
And it's actually fun to see everything as it's coming out as well. So it's a blast to go through this whole journey as well.
Yeah, I think that's a comment you made during one of our last table reads, is you're like, you know what, this is just kind of like a book club with friends. Would you say, you know, the experience as a voice actor is mirroring what you thought it would be? Are there any differences?
Honestly, I thought it would be a lot less of the table read type aspects to it, and a lot more like set up solo recordings, and then you just have to like send along the recording lines to, you know, the one person, and they take care of everything. But the way we have it set up, where we have the table reads, everybody is very like willing to help each other out, do any sort of like adjustments to the lines and help each other out and lend a hand, because there are some people who are more experienced than others.
Totally.
And getting that help from the more experienced individuals is amazing.
It is convenient. We have a lot of skill sets in this group.
Yeah, and I've definitely been learning a lot as we've been going along.
And I think you got the opportunity to do some acting lessons as well, like after we had started a little bit. Is that the case?
It was. I, through a random set of events and a series of a little bit of luck here, I ended up winning a small amount of time with another voice actor who actually, like, you know, does this professionally. And I was able to get some advice on how to do the recording and everything like that. The types of things I should look out for, the mentality I should be in, and I've taken those lessons and applied them as best I can.
What have you found has been the biggest struggle for you?
There have been some times where I just can't get the right connotations. Like, whenever you're recording any of the lines, one of the things that was recommended is try to record them in a couple of different ways, just so you can hear like different words that are being emphasized, different ways to say different things. And there are some lines that just like, I try and put all my effort into saying it like 3-4 different ways, and then I hear my recordings back and I'm like, this is me saying the same thing every time.
Sure, that's tough to master.
Yep. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, this is something that I'm gonna get used to. I'm gonna understand how I say certain things along the way, and I'll be able to adjust going forward. But something that I still have learning to do.
Totally. Have you found there's a lot of differences in your approach, maybe comfort level, even skill, since you started Chapter 1 to wherever we mysteriously are now?
Definitely. With the point that we're at right now, I've definitely gotten to a lot more comfort level.
Mm-hmm.
As along the way, like starting in Chapter 1, I was nervous.
Sure.
Because even though like I've done a little bit of jokey voice acting before on like streaming and stuff like that, where I'm like, oh, I'll play like this character like this and this character like this.
Totally.
I was like, this will be fine because it's just me joking around, like having fun, but also along the way, like there's no real expectation of me for it. Whereas when we started recording officially for like Chapter 1, Chapter 2, there was a little bit more pressure of like, yeah, no, this is a serious thing now. Like, we're actually doing this project, and not only was it exciting, but it was a little nerve-wracking.
Totally. You know what? I don't know about you. I find getting into the thick of it is almost more intimidating than starting. Because, like, to start, all you gotta do is, like, pick up your boots and do it, so to speak. But once you're through it, now you have to finish. And that's, like, so much more intimidating, but maybe that's just me.
For me, actually, after we got going with everything, I had a lot more fun with it.
That's awesome.
Because starting it off, I was, like, nervous on so many different things of, like, can I play this character? Am I right for this character? And the further we went with everything, the more I realized that, no, like, there's a reason that we ended up doing this.
Totally.
And we're going in this together at the same way. Also, 1 second. Yeah, I'm good to go again. What were we talking about?
All right, we'll just continue walking through here. We had a minor disruption. I don't remember what we were talking about, but it sure is disorienting to the viewer. No, I'm kidding. Their whiplash doesn't matter to me at all. You can tell because I'm the author of On the Line. I end every single chapter with emotional manipulation.
I mean, that's part of the fun, though.
I fully agree.
As we go through the journey, like the ending on a cliffhanger type scenario, it's like some people would be like upset by that. Me, I'm very much excited about it every time. I'm like, what is gonna happen next? What is gonna be the next thing we deal with?
I'm the same way. I kind of like knowing what to look forwards to, or where are we going. This rat guy's gonna talk. No, let's just beat him up. Perfect. Have you played a lot of Warhammer things?
Warhammer things? Yes, actually, I have. 40K as well as regular Warhammer.
That was gonna be my question. Are you like a fantasy or a 40K guy more?
I actually rock both, and I'm actually looking forward to the new game coming out.
Oh my god,
Dark Tide,
that looks
which
really
is going to be the 40K version of this, essentially.
I know. I'm super psyched for that game. It looks amazing. Just to, like, use a bolter.
It looks like so much fun.
Oh, yeah. Which did you get into first?
Also, with it as well, it's going to be like a unique journey as well, since I believe each of the characters has their own style in there as well. But like in this one, like you don't really have like a major size difference or anything. Like you have the dwarf, which is smaller than the rest, but everybody else is roughly the same size. Whereas in that one, you've got a sizable difference amongst the crew.
Yeah, that's... Do they have more than, like, ultramarines and stuff in there?
Yeah, because it's more so the regular folks rather than the ultramarines running around the Dark Tide.
Oh, sure.
So that's why it's going to be a little bit more different. And I'm actually looking forward to that.
Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, I would be just as happy if you did, like, ultramarines and Tau and maybe throw a green boy in there for no good reason. But I also see, just in general, it's a cool universe. Do you find...
It very much is.
With games, that's the first thing that catches you, or is it the mechanics? Like, what makes you decide, I'm interested in it? Not make the purchase, just what catches your eye first?
For me, it's very much the aesthetics.
Okay.
Because, like, you have Vermintide, and it's very much Warhammer themed and everything.
Totally.
But at its core, this is similar to any team-based board battle, essentially. If this theme, instead of Warhammer, was you were a bunch of special forces running through like a bunch of enemy troops, I don't think I'd have the same desire to play the game.
Sure.
Because that theme just doesn't fit as well for me. Even though, like, mechanically the game could be the exact same.
Sure.
But, like, that's where, like, theme definitely rocks it for me.
I agree.
Even, like, the concept of Payday 2, which is very much a bag throwing simulator.
Yeah.
With some shooting along the way. I've heard everybody say, like, yeah, it's just a bag throwing simulator, and that's all there is to it. And I'm like, but the theme of it is this, and it's a journey that I enjoy to go along with my friends along with this experience. And I've played a lot of hours of that game. It was actually my one of the games that I was going to recommend that we go through this playthrough with as well. Because I know that game so well, I can pretty much go through that blind.
I believe it, yeah. No, that is a good game. And sometimes just like, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but like, if there isn't too much ludonarrative dissonance, like if you can really just believe you are the person and you're doing these things and that's a part of the whole experience, it doesn't even matter what it is. You can just get into it. It can be believable. So I get you. There are some titles like that. Like even when I got into Monster Hunter originally, I got into it because I really liked the idea of protecting a village from dragons. I didn't even realize it was an acclaimed series until years down the road, right? I was just like, yay.
No, honestly, like the fact that you have all these different types of games that you can get into the mindset of the protagonist and go along these journeys, that's what very much like drives it home for me. Which is why like growing up, one of my favorite game series was like the Tomb Raider games.
Sure.
The later ones definitely had their issue, but that wasn't like, oh, the game is any worse. It was just like somewhere along the lines, like those who were writing the story kind of got a little bit wishy-washy. They added a lot of like crazy things here and there. I'm all for like crazy mystical things, but you know, you have to lead up to it properly.
You know what? I feel the exact same way. That's actually why I'm so excited for Chapter 5 On the Line to come out, because we've spent a lot of time these 4 chapters making what is going to happen somewhat believable. Because if it comes out of nowhere, it's really jarring. It doesn't feel like it fits. But you put in the
also with
groundwork.
that as well, like one of the things that's always bothered me about some games is where you're like, yeah, these characters have known each other forever, and then when they talk to each other, it's very jarring, and like the way they act to each other, it's like they've just met, and I'm like, but you just said they've known each other for years and they're acting like this. Like, come on. Like stuff like that always like pulls me out of the gaming experience drastically.
That's totally fair.
Which is one of the things that we've actually done that actually works.
No, we got
So
lucky.
I'm actually looking forward to that.
Some people got to knew each other. Like I believe you knew. I don't even know how long. I think you've known Nancy for a while before this started.
Yeah, I've actually known her for a significant chunk of my life now.
So, and I'm sure you'd met some other people, and then there's some folks that I know who've come into this, but at this point in time, I think it's fair to say everyone in the cast knows each other. You know, there's no one there that would feel awkward saying hi or having a quick question with anyone, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and even like that, like slight little, I don't know this person when we first began. Now it's very much like, oh hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Any sort of like caution of a person that I didn't know has turned into, oh yeah, that's just another one of my friends.
Absolutely. And it's convenient too, because like in the situation of online, everyone for the most part has known each other for a while, but there are some differences, and then you all just really meet each other in person for the first time in chapter 4. So it's believable. It's like the difference between internet friends and then you go out for pizza the first time.
Yep.
You're like, oh, okay, I know that. Yeah, that is fun.
That's actually one of those things that I probably wanted to bring up as well, because
Sure.
like the concept of internet friends once upon a time was so strange and
Yeah.
foreign and out there. But I've actually met a lot of people on the internet and met them in person after the fact, and it's very much like, oh yeah, we've been friends for years now.
I feel the exact same way. Most of my time being a teenager and a young adult was doing everything they said not to do in those gymnasium like conversations. Like, don't meet people online, don't meet them in public, don't. And I just did all those things. That's how I met everyone. That's how I met my wife. You know, like that's how. How do you meet people otherwise nowadays? I don't even know.
Like, the fact that you can meet people online and you can have similar interests and you can roll with that is just something that like resounds so well with me. I'm just like, I understand the whole concept of like meeting people in person for the first time, and yeah, you got to be like a little bit cautious online, but there's a certain level of caution and a certain level of, yeah, I'm gonna trust these random people online. 'Cause it's definitely been one of the best experiences I've come across as well, along the lines of meeting people at random events that you enjoy and then becoming friends with them.
I
As
feel
I
the same
made
way.
a bunch of friends at a bunch of different cons I've gone to,
Hmm.
and I had never met them beforehand, and then go to the con, randomly talking with folks, and then it's like, all right, we're friends now. This is what it is.
That's I think that's something humans are really good at. And I don't know if you've had this experience as well. I think something that's interesting about internet friends, and maybe is better than meeting somebody in real life to start with, is I have a few internet friends who, if we met in real life, we probably would have like disregarded each other. You know, wrote one another off. Oh, you're not my type of person. We don't have enough, in kind. We're not, physically the same, like in dress style, and like we would be in different high school cliques, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But
yeah, no, that I completely understand.
if you meet online and like you don't have that initial blocker, I have some friends like who are really good friends who've opened my eyes to other perspectives and different lifestyles and different worldviews that I probably would have been ignorant to if we had looked at each other when we met. As funny as that sounds, right?
Yeah, no, something like that actually is something I have experienced a fair bit just along my journeys. Because you meet all sorts of people at conventions,
Sure.
and it was one of those things that I was like, oh, I'm probably never gonna like meet these types of people, or like if I came across someone like
Sorry.
this,
Yep.
we probably wouldn't be friends. However, like along the way, I've become excellent friends with a bunch of them, and it's just been a joyful time getting to know them as well, because we got to meet each other via a common interest that we would talk about, and then later on it was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm also this, and I'm like, huh, how about that?
Yep.
Like my like schooling was for computer science,
Yep.
and that was a field that I was like, yeah, I'm very comfortable with this. This is something that I know really well, and the types of people who I'm gonna like come across will either know this or will have some other interest that's very similar to mine, and our paths will cross via those types of things.
Sure.
Along the line, I've met people from very many different areas of expertise, and I'm just like, well then, because like someone who's a lawyer is somebody who I was like, yeah, like they can be great people, but I'm probably not going to have any friends that are going to be lawyers.
Sure.
Lo and behold, I've made some friends that are like lawyers, and I have a blast just hanging out with them and talking with them.
That's cool. I probably would have made the same mistake, honestly, but that's why it is sometimes important to just let folks in.
Yep. Because like every experience prior to that, I was like, oh, lawyers are very like stuffy, and like they're not as entertaining and not as fun. It just goes to show you, like, you can meet all sorts of people in every venue.
Yeah, that is true. I have yet to meet a salesperson who doesn't instantly remind me that they're a salesperson, but maybe that's just, that's just a personality thing. What can you do?
Sure.
They're always on. I think that'd be the career I couldn't do. I don't know about you. Like, I've tried to do sales. I was able to do it, but I sold my soul in the process. You are very good at computer science. Geez, you taught me enough to keep my goddamn job. What's something you think you couldn't do?
Honestly, along the way, I've realized sales is something, if I needed to, I could do it, but it's not something I enjoy. Like, through just understanding myself along the way, there's a lot of stuff I realize that I can do, just whether I want to do it or not. That's the big thing.
Oh, totally.
Because, like, I've done odds and end jobs here and there. I've been in sales. I've worked kiosks.
Yep.
I've worked in areas where I never would have thought would have been something related to anything I did, because I worked in a mineral lab for a while, and that was dealing with, like, coal samples and all sorts of stuff. Like, I had my, like, certification for handling all the chemicals and stuff like that.
Of course.
That was really easy for me to get. But, like, the concept of, like, just working with, like, mineral samples and, like, coal and all that kind of stuff, I was like, yes, but it was what was available. I took the job, and I learned quite a bit from the people that were working there at the time.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it was definitely a weird scenario, because I never, like, expected myself to be in a situation like that.
It is the case where, you know what, I find this more and more and more. You start learning one thing, you pick up a random hobby, decide to try something out, and it might even be years down the road. But we always find weird applications for things in life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I started off, my first batch of education was in grief therapy. I am not a grief therapist right now, G. But you know what? Like, it's not like that education ever leaves you, or you stop finding applications for it, right?
Yeah, like, some stuff like that will stick with you through and through, but, doesn't mean you have to use it every day, right?
Now, this is, I'm gonna presume there might be a no here, but I'm curious if there is. Do you feel like your background in computer science has helped voice acting anyway?
Voice acting, probably not.
Other than learning to render your files in a good format. That might be it.
Like, that in the essence of, like, how to, like, set up my computer and stuff like that, yes, but that is not something that was directly, like, part of my teaching. That was actually more so just stuff I was interested in after the fact, and I was able to use that. But yeah, no, like, my actual schooling stuff, not so much in this sense.
Of course.
Funnily enough, it's my hobbies that have given me more of a mindset of, like, how to handle things.
Sure. What do you feel like you're drawing on from those experiences the most?
For, like, using my hobbies to voice act?
Or personal
get into the
experiences?
mentality of, like, the characters, and hopefully, like, any of the characters that I am playing through. Like, for Dezz, a lot of the things that I'm relating to is, like, my own interactions with my friends, the type of person he is. He wants to help other people. He is in pain, which, I mean, the extent of that I can relate to is, like, I'm older, so therefore I'm like, oh, my body aches and pains.
Yeah.
Not real, but, like, a little bit here and there. I mean, okay, it's real in the sense that it's an actual thing, but it's nothing to the extent of, like, his pain.
Oh, sure, in comparison. Yeah, I see what
in
you're
comparison to, like, what his pain is supposed to be.
For sure.
But I very much try to use as much of that as I can towards those types of things. But, like, the other areas where he, like, has different interests, and, like, the areas that I looked at his. I don't know if you would have released this or not, but like the stat sheet for like the areas that he leveled up his character
Oh,
originally.
sure.
So the information on that stat sheet, I was like, oh, this is actually really entertaining because these are a lot of areas that I would have leveled up myself as well, inadvertently too. Like
Nice.
I would have just naturally been doing these types of things, and I would have been like, oh, I'm leveling these skills up. Okay, I guess. But
No,
the
nice.
fact that a lot of those areas crossed over, I was actually really entertained.
That's sweet. You know what? I don't think I have released those, but maybe I should do that. I'll like release them for patrons or something, because that was the starting point for most of you in learning your character, was like their literal character sheet if they were in the game, which is kind of fun.
I actually use that to get in the mentality of him as well.
Do you? Okay, that's
Actually,
cool.
always still have it up with me,
That's
like whenever
awesome.
I'm doing my recordings, just because it gives me a good a base point for what Dezz is like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it
No,
definitely
that's fair.
helps.
You know what? Like, it might sound silly from the outside, but to like kind of put it to an example, like if you were playing Final Fantasy with someone and you looked at their character and the only things they had leveled were Tailor and Dancer, you're like, this person spends a lot of time in G pose. You know, like you can just tell from a distance. You're like, I know what type of player this is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, stats can tell a story.
Actually one of those things where like I said, it was one of those areas that I was actually learning more about Dezz from, is because I could use like, oh, he leveled up these skills, and why would someone level these skills up? Well, it kind of tells you something about them as a person.
Absolutely.
And that's why I always like have those that stat sheet up next to me whenever I'm doing my recording, because anytime like I falter a little bit, or I'm like, I'm not really sure what would Dezz think of this, or how would Dezz deliver this, look back at his stat sheets, I look back at like the different relations he has with everybody, and I try to apply that mentality to any of the lines that I'm saying.
For sure. No, I think that's the way to do it, get into their head. Without spoiling anything, because Dezz has some really interesting moments in Chapter 5, some big character development and changes of maybe perspective, we'll say.
Yep.
When you were getting into the headspace for that, did you have to change anything specifically? Did you stop pushing your thumb into your hand, so to speak? What were your strategies for that?
A lot of that was me actually just considering like what type of character he was beforehand, and just taking all of his experiences. Like the best way I can put it is just taking the experiences that he had gone through, and applying it to that new scenario that he was coming across, like without spoiling it very much. So it's very much dealing with that, the scenarios he's gone through, like the pain he's gone through, because we've learned about like kind of pain he lives with on a daily basis, and just taking that and applying what was happening in the new scenario, and just trying to be as real with it as I could, not being fake about it, not being like, oh well, this just happened, just trying to be as level-headed and real about it as I possibly could. Man, it's so hard not to talk about what happens.
I know, right? Like we wanna get people excited, but we also don't want to take away a reason to be excited by telling them.
Very much so. Like
totally
part of me is
understand.
like so excited to like talk about it, but yeah, no, like without spoiling it, it's a little bit difficult. But yeah, no, I love Dezz. Like the more I get to play him, the happier I get, really. Just because the more I'm playing him, the more we get to learn about him and his interactions with the other characters. And along those lines as well, just you learn about each and every one of the other characters as well. It is fun experience for me, because like I said, I'm on this journey with our readers as well, and I'm having a blast. I look forward to seeing all the next things that are gonna be popping up. Like, what's gonna happen with this character? What's gonna happen with this character? Is there anything that's gonna happen between these characters? Like, there's a conflict brewing. Like, what's gonna happen next?
No, that makes sense. Who are you most curious about outside your own character? Like, who is a story brewing where you're like, what the heck is going on there? Or you want to figure it out more?
There are a few things, like, the one who I'm most curious about at this point is Ekomatsu,
Sure.
because there's a lot to know about him, and there's a lot we don't know yet. And even when we like learn more about it, it's like, wait, what? So I very much just want to continue to learn more about him and see what's going on with that. Also, like, there's gonna be more information about like his past, so you're gonna hear about his like relationships, and there are things that happen as well that when they happen, it raises a question here and there where it's like, okay, that's in reference to something that happened before. What happened before? Like, we don't know fully, but we know there's a shared experience along the way, right?
Sure.
So learning more about the past experiences he has with the others.
Absolutely. Nope, makes absolute sense.
Yeah, like Osmo, Khan, how the three of them ended up meeting and everything like that. That's going to be interesting. In all honesty, like, every one of the characters, I want to know more, and how they all like relate to each other. Because you set up this story, and I'm just like, give me more.
There is a really unique thing that happens too, is even though, you know, some of the cast is new to voice acting, because it gets to be the first role, the first character you develop, you're really like doing all that work inside the narrative, and it gets to be part of what we record and capture and bring forward, which is fun because it feels like an organic experience. Sometimes, you know, professionals are professionals for a reason, but just as well, a professional can be so professional that they might phone it in, and they're not thinking about what they're doing, like we are right now, just smashing and scathing heads. And that's fine, but is it the most like bespoke experience? Maybe not. Someone who has to think about all those things, who's like going through it in their head, you get really a stream of consciousness that it is really cool. I feel like there's a youth, so to speak, that grows with the series chapter to chapter, with everyone figuring things out. And maybe it's just me, but I feel like chapter 5 is the end of that first, like that thesis of that growth. It's like everything here and now, the roots are established, watch the rest of the tree. That's how I feel about it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, with chapter 5, there's things that happen that will definitely cause a shift going forward as well, right?
Yeah, it's because it's in the funniest way. It is the same story, but it's also now a very different story. And that's fun because you can only do the original thing for so long. Like, I love the interplay between the characters. I think yourself and Khan have been able to have a really good, like, camaraderie that feels comfortable, like you've been friends for a while, you're making jokes at each other in a way you have before.
Yep. And that's actually one of those things that I've had a little bit of trouble with, just as a voice acting aspect as well. But what I end up taking in those types of scenarios is I just think back to like my own personal experiences of like when I'm with friends. And one of the things about me is I have friends in so many different groups that it's one of those things where I'm just like, all right, when I'm with this group of friends, what do we talk about? When I'm with this group of friends, what do we talk about? And the different levels of intimacy as well with the different groups of friends along the way as well. Just because with Khan, it's going to be a lot of closer experience, right?
Yep.
Whereas like Gekomatsu, there's that respect, but there's also that little bit of a separation there because Gecko is on a different level than the rest of them are.
Hmm.
And like you feel it even when you're like going through the different experiences and everything, how he deals with things. But also this is people of different like ages and skills and everything like that in the real world
Yep.
versus like in the game and everything and what they do. And you don't think about it too much until like you meet in person, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa. And like this goes back to like what I was mentioning before, like in all the games and all the like the types of experiences I've gone through, I was like, oh yeah, lawyers are like this, I'm probably not going to come across one. And then when I met someone who was a lawyer and like we got along really well and everything like that, I was like, whoa. And you have this whole different skill set, and that's just impressive, like by like so many different means.
Absolutely.
And that was one of those things where I try to take those experiences and how I felt in those types of situations and apply it to how I am voice acting as well. I do my best to take my real life and relate it to Dez and how he's delivering certain lines and how he's dealing with certain situations.
Absolutely.
In some of those situations, oh man.
Do you feel like you've had enough fun with voice acting where it's something you want to continue to pursue?
Very much so. Like I started off doing like different voices on when I was streaming different games, and like, oh, here's all these like lines of text. Well, there are these characters who need to be voiced. All right, well, I'll just voice them. And I
Hmm.
did it for fun, and it was all right. It was good times,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it, and other people seem to enjoy it as well. But like actually getting into the role of a continuing character for a story that's beyond just me, and then other people are voicing other characters, like
Hmm.
whole experience has definitely gotten me very very pumped to do more voice acting because yeah, it's a blast, and working with others is great, and learning from others as well is a wonderful experience.
Oh, absolutely. We are, like I was even saying earlier, we're really lucky that we managed to attract a cast of people who interact with each other really, really well. I feel like we have a lot of healthy and positive interactions. But just as well, like a lot of different skills and different positions. I think some of us are a lot more extroverted and better at that than others are, but it takes all kinds, so it's really good to have the mix.
Yep.
What do you feel like you enjoy doing the most? Say between like different types of scenes. You know, there's an action scene, an emotional scene. Where are you having the most fun? Do you like a scene where you're just chatting to your other voice actors a lot?
I am definitely starting to have more fun with the scenes that more action is happening.
Okay,
Um,
sure.
it's definitely one of those areas that I was not expecting to have as much fun with, because I was originally thinking like, oh, this is gonna be stressful and it's gonna be like this, it's gonna be like
Hmm.
this, and as I've gone along with it, I was like, oh wait, no, this is a lot more fun. This is great.
No. You know, it's actually, I'm really excited for you to get to listen to Chapter 5 because, like, you know, it's published to this point, so we know where Chapter 4 leaves off. There's a monster crawling through the screen. There's been a lot of death. Nelt's party has been dismantled. And it's just like, as silly as it is, you take, like, if you screamed right now, neither of us would be all that startled. Maybe we'd be a little bit annoyed, you know? Like, be like, oh, why are you screaming? But if you add it
Exactly.
in, everybody else is there. There's that sense of a little bit of music, a little bit of, and then it instantly becomes so captivating. So I could see learning how to do that be a fun process.
Yeah, like the whole journey so far has been like an insane thing, just thinking about it, because when you normally think about a situation, it's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to record these lines, I'm going to be talking about these things,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh yeah, well, that's pretty normal, everything's fine, because you're just like, oh yeah, I'm talking in this scenario.
Yeah.
And then it's when you get the combat stuff happening, when it's like I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm doing this, we're being attacked by this, it's crazy, I'm being attacked by this weird crazy creature, and the answer is there's only one way to depict that, and it is try and imagine it happening and do the best you can.
That's
And the
totally
best
fair.
thing along the line though is because we have all these like video games and stuff to draw from,
Totally.
we actually have that the ability to create those mental images,
Absolutely.
and the descriptions that you've given the characters and the creatures along the way and everything along those lines is more than enough to like just imagine what's happening and be like, I know what's gonna happen, I know what's going on, I know what I'm seeing.
I can
And
imagine that's important.
yes, being able to see in your mind's eye what your character is doing when you're voicing them very much helps.
And like, I think I put that in there because like, this is, Jesus, it sounds really pretentious to take a second to think about it. It's my 7th book. And
Okay.
what I've been learning through that process is that just the way that I see something and all the work that I do to get there, if that isn't just as instantaneous for the reader, I've missed something. You know, like we could have these really complex monsters, and that's fine. But if somebody can't go, okay, I know what the sound is, how it's moving, how it fits in this room. I don't know about you, I have this pet peeve in a lot of books. They jump through a scene so quickly, it doesn't give you time for your mind to make the scene. You're just kind of like rummaging through some chaos, trying to pretend you know what's going on. So it's really important for me to put it in a place where something horrible is happening and you know what it sounds like, what it smells like, if you touched it, what it would feel like. You know, that's part of the fun, getting in there.
Really is. And like as you mentioned, it's like it's not always there in every book, every story you go through, that like there's like, oh yeah, they're being attacked by creatures. All right, cool. What do the creatures look like? What are they doing? What are the sounds they're making? How are the characters reacting to this? And sometimes you get it, other times you don't. Sometimes you just have like a vague idea and you're like, all right, I guess they're being attacked by some sort of monster thing.
Yep.
And
Or, oh, this guy's here
what you
now.
have.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. Oh, we're in this building? I didn't realize, like, yeah.
And sometimes you just get lost in the sauce, essentially, and it's not necessarily a good thing. It's like, sometimes it is. Where is that guy?
Yeah, I thought he was, like, inside?
And then he, like, vanished. But, like, sometimes it's like, you get lost in the story, and you're fully engrossed in the characters, and that's great.
Yep.
Other times you get lost in the story in the sense that, like, stuff is happening, and you're just like, I'm supposed to know what's happening, but I don't. Because there's so much stuff happening, I kind of just got lost. So you just keep reading, because that's the only way to go.
That's exactly it. Like, you have that moment where you're like, ah, damn it, I have to go back a page, because I have no idea what's happening right here. I clearly missed a sentence, and now nothing makes sense. It could be a lot worse in the audiobook format, too, right? Like, things are coming at you so quick, people are just going into their lines. You know, you lose that he said, she said part of a book. And it's really important in a book, but if we didn't have folks with all these different voices and different perspectives and really thinking about their characters, it would be even tougher to know what the heck's going on if it all sounded the same. It just didn't stop.
Actually, one of the things I love about, like, this journey that we're doing with, like, everybody, like, each character having their own voice along the way, is because there's so many of us, each of us gives each character their own life.
Yes.
And it's easier to follow that.
I fully agree.
Really enjoyable.
I even love, like, as somebody who, like, gets to write the lines, when I go in and I listen to everyone's recordings, and then someone added, like, a pause somewhere I didn't think about it, or they, like, changed a few words to fit their mouth better. I love when that happens. To that is me as like the actor becoming the character, like taking it just as seriously or putting their spin on it. It's fun because like it's almost like being the DM in D&D, right? Like you can create the dungeon and the villain, but you have no idea if your party is going to assassinate them or give them a box of chocolates, right?
Yeah.
And that's fun. That's a great little, you know, thing for me to look forwards to.
That's actually one of the things I was kind of curious about, because like I've played my fair share of D&D.
Yeah.
I've been both a DM as well as a player, and I was curious for that concept. It's like, is it very much the same as like when you're writing a book, is just going through the experience of being a DM, just on a grander scale? Because you don't have players to be like, what are you gonna do next? You have to plan that out yourself.
In a lot of ways, yeah. I think something about being a DM that's really important for me as an author is remembering that any situation can go wrong, and sometimes it should, right? Like, you're writing a story about people who are skilled and capable or interesting, so they're going to do skilled and capable and interesting things. That's part of it. They might win amazing battles and whatever.
Right.
But if they don't fail, if they don't have that potential, it doesn't feel like a real story. It doesn't feel like people making real choices. So it is similar to that. But On the Line's been different than any book I've ever done before, because I was looking at the South Park production method, actually, where, you know, they do things like 1 week they're writing, 1 week they're filming, the next week they're releasing. And I'm not on that tight of a timeline. We have a few months in between. But when we started, I was very much going, okay, I'm going to write up to here, and then I'm going to talk to people about their character, and I'm going to take a few notes, and then I'm going to infuse that into maybe how they approach the next scene. And I know what the scene's going to be. I know what's going to blow up. Not that, you know, whatever. But I'll infuse how the person views their character and how I view that character into the line. So there have been changes that have casually happened throughout this series just because of conversations like this, or what y'all say in the table reads about what you like. I'm like, okay, I could modify this line to showcase that a little bit more, or give you the opportunity to do something you're excited about without changing the story I want to tell, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, that was actually one of those things that also I wanted to point out is by being part of this journey for voice acting and everything like that, I've definitely also leveled up my player game, so to speak.
Sure.
Whenever I'm playing any of my characters nowadays, like it was always one of those things where I've always been able to put myself in their shoes, but definitely with just like getting the right emotions down as well for the situation, I definitely been able to level that up as well a little bit.
You know what? I feel this the same way. It's actually funny, like, even watching my own Let's Plays or something for editing or something, right? Like, I look at the games I was playing like a year ago, and then I'm playing old PS1 games now where, you have to read all the text, right? But the difference is, like, it's this mindset change where before you're like, oh, I'm just going to try and have fun with it. And you're like, oh, dude, I do voice acting stuff now. I should really just give it. And
yeah, like I can put my whole heart into this and just like, oh, this is an emotional moment. Hell yeah, I'm gonna put all that emotion into it. There's no reason not to.
I think actually in our D&D game you do that every now and then, where you'll be the character, and then you'll do something I respect is you'll just stop. Like, you'll say what the character has to say, and then you'll just let everyone figure out, like, is he speaking out of character right now? Is he being really weird? Like, what's going on here? And I love
I've done that a couple of times, and I'm like, I hope everybody gets what's going on here.
Yeah. Because, like, I pick up on it almost right away. I'm like, oh, he's playing the character. He's doing this. He's just going whole hog. But I can see the cogs kicking in everyone else's head. It's like, and that's so fucking fun.
Yeah, it's happened a couple times, and I was like, if nothing happens for a little bit, that's when I'm like, all right, guys, like, this is what just happened. Like, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing? and that's when I get the responses after the fact, and I'm like, all right, cool. Like they know what's happening after that point. They know I'm not just being crazy.
Totally. But for those few moments in the start, it's great fun.
Yeah. A few moments at the beginning, they're just like, and I'm like, it's this. I'm fine. I'm good. Don't worry about it. Everything is fine. I am A-okay.
So you've been streaming for a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years now that I've been doing it. And the reason I started was because a bunch of my friends who I've met along the way, they themselves are streamers, and they're like, hey, like, you should stream too. And I'm like, I don't know, like, it's not really my thing. And they're like, no, it is. Like, trust us, you got the chops for it. And I'm like, all right, well, if you believe I can do this, then yeah, I'll rock it.
Do you feel like streaming got you into, or let you start practicing voice acting even before you got there?
Yeah, definitely. Streaming allowed me to do a lot of things that I was like, this is something crazy and out there, and I wouldn't normally do. And lo and behold, after I started streaming, like, just doing all the different voices and everything for the streams themselves.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, well, now I can do this. And it gave me a little bit more confidence as well.
Were you a soft-spoken person before you started streaming? Was there any, like, personal confidence that came from that?
I wouldn't say a soft-spoken person, but definitely I wasn't as forward as I am when I started streaming.
Sure.
And even then, like, before I even started streaming for myself, I would join friends on their streams and just be like a co-commentator and have fun with that. And like, they always enjoyed having me on, and they're like, yeah, you're just more than welcome to come back.
That's
and
awesome.
I enjoyed that process. And I just wanted to take it to the next level of having my own place like that.
Do you think you will ever stop streaming?
Probably.
Yeah?
It's one of those things that I do because I'm having a blast with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like somewhere along the line, something might happen that might take that joy away from it. And if it does, like, I'm not gonna continue to force myself through it or anything like that.
Totally.
It'll be one of those scenarios that I realize what's happening, I realize my pain points, and I'll address it accordingly.
Sure.
But if it's anytime soon, no. I very much see myself streaming for a while still. Just because it's so much fun.
Totally. What was the first game you did?
I think now. It's been so long.
Yeah.
I think it might have been one of the... I know one of my earlier games was Command & Conquer Red Alert.
Oh, that's a great game.
Sure. I also learned a lot of lessons from that as well.
Oh, yeah?
One of them specifically being, I have a blast with that type of game, but it's also something that takes a lot of focus.
Sure.
And that was one of those things, like, when I was playing it, I would be focusing really hard on certain things that were happening because I needed to.
Totally.
I couldn't just, like, mindlessly play through it. Also, it didn't help that the game was actively cheating against me.
Yeah.
And I just had to adapt to that best I could.
Original C and COC is pretty brutal.
Yeah, not only that, so with newer computers, I didn't know this at the time.
The clock speed thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because of the clock speed, the computer actually gets to act faster than you do.
Yeah.
So for every move I did, computer got 2 to 3 moves off.
I love stuff like that.
That's not fair.
No, I know it's
like, I've
wrong.
played this before. I've done this before. This shouldn't be this hard. Like, what is happening? You actually actively have to slow down the game speed to be able to play properly. And I was like, oh, this is so harsh. But it's what you need to do to be able to play properly.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
I actually do think that stuff like that is hilarious. Like anything like that, like all the Resident Evil 2 speedrunning stuff, or like how all the From Software games, they're frame locked, and if you unlock the frame rate, like things will hit you outside of frames, and none of the hitboxes will make sense. And it's just like, we forget that hardware is such a big part of the experience, even that we're having right now. But
Yeah,
when it pops up, it's hilarious.
like it's one of those things you don't think about it until it hits you, and then you're like, oh, well, what's happening? Why is this happening? And it's like, oh right, I have better tech than I'm supposed to at this point. Especially with like older games, you notice that.
Oh yeah, like there's some really, really old games where they didn't know that multi-core CPUs were ever going to exist. So they only look at one core for all their processing. But if you have a modern like 8-core, your one core isn't as strong as a whole single core CPU used to be. So you're like burning out one of your 4 cores, even though your CPU is technically like 8 times more powerful.
Yep.
You get caught. Stuff like that's great.
It's a bit wacky, but when you see it happen and you can actually diagnose it and see it happening, is actually really enjoyable. At least for me, because as soon as I figured it out, I was like, oh, I see what's happening. I need to do this now to adapt to this. And everybody in my chat's like, oh, you're just making excuses. I'm like, no. Here. Let me prove to you this is what's happening.
Yeah.
All right. These are the frames that we're gonna take a look at. This is what's gonna happen. And here, let's take a look at how fast they're attacking me right now. And like, they would be attacking me like extremely quickly because I would be running at normal speed.
Yep.
And I'd be like, and see now me attacking, the computer's going at the correct speed because it's the player attacks, and everything was shooting a lot slower than the AI was. And I'm like, this is not supposed to be happening. But yeah, no, like I started with Command and Conquer, Red Alert. Since then, I've done a bunch of like story games. I've played some co-ops games with my chat and some friends as well.
Nice.
And a lot of the time, like, this is the way I get around. Because earlier I mentioned that I don't play a lot of single player games, but
Sure.
I end up playing a lot of co-op experiences and whatnot. But there still are single player games out there that are a lot of fun, they're really enjoyable, and they're really interesting stories to tell. And this was my way to get around that.
Force yourself to play single player with friends and chat and stuff. That is a really great way to work around that.
It becomes playing the single player game as a shared experience, and with that, I've actually been able to play a lot of games that I've been meaning to play all this time, and I was just like, oh well, I will eventually play it, I guess. I don't know. And now it's just like, hey, the Yakuza series, I heard all these great things about it. Now I got to play through a bunch of them, and oh my god, they are a blast. Like, they have their problems here and there, like little by little, but like the general experience I got out of like the Yakuza games is just like so much fun and joy. And the wacky side stories that happen have been like such a blast that I've enjoyed each and every one of those games, and I still plan on doing a couple more of the games. And with the new one announced as well, I'm looking forward to that one and playing that on stream as well. Like, I'm looking forward to the future of the series that is a single player experience, but I'm like, not for me, it isn't.
No, exactly. You're gonna have a movie theater of folks playing alongside with you, which, you know, kind of brings it full circle to the fact that you really are a person who just loves sharing the experience. I think that's something I admire about you. It's a great feature and trait to have. Just as well, G, I want to say thanks for taking the time to do this interview, chat about online, Dezz, you as a person, what games you like. Is there anything here you'd like to say as we're closing up this interview? Anything you want to shout out or mention?
Nothing in particular. Mainly I just want to say hey to everybody who's watching this, and glad that you guys are joining us for this experience. And if I know more that's coming up for Dezz, and I know a couple things that are coming up for Dezz, I very much hope that you guys can join us on that journey, because like I said, there's some fun stuff coming up ahead, and I can see a path for Dez, but I don't know the full story for him. But I can see some good times ahead and maybe some bad. But you know, that's the journey. And very much looking forward to everybody joining us on that.